interesting day today. I am in Bangalore. It rained finally. I was waiting. It should rain. I was in Mumbai about a year ago and it used to rain very heavily. I heard it's raining very heavily right now there. But beautiful weather out here. Today's topic of webinar is very interesting. I am presenting what I call is a golden trio of India stack, which is ONDC, OCEN, and UHI. It's very interesting golden trio. I have when I looked at this golden trio and looked at it very holistically. It's interesting, what emerged out, and I'm excited to present it right now here to everyone. ONDC basically is India's e-commerce network. We've been talking about ONDC in other sessions. I have covered a lot around ONDC. In this session, I will probably just breeze through quickly around ONDC. If you want to know more about ONDC, you can always watch previous sessions on ONDC, where we have extensively covered what is ONDC, what's the impact of ONDC, how ONDC will shape e-commerce in India. It's amazing what is happening in ONDC. Plot, basically where I work, is a network participant there. And a lot of exciting work happening there. And you will definitely hear a lot more about ONDC in coming few months. OCEN is something has been there for last 2 years. It's basically India's lending network. This is again a different domain altogether, not e-commerce but lending. Again, something which India needs a lot. Something where a lot of gaps are there. And it's amazing, how OCEN has been created, and the impact of OCEN still needs to be felt everywhere, but has a lot of potential, immense amount of potential. And I'm going to cover that also in this session. And the third is India's health network, which is UHI. Now, UHI is something, is sort of the newest among all, all the three here. But the bedrock of UHI has been, being built, in last few years under ABDM, which is Ayushman Bharat Digital Mission. Lot of things has happened in ABDM, and UHI is one of the newest thing which has come out. Very interesting around health. Again, something which India needs a lot, and a lot can be done here. And it's very interesting to see India's health network being, created here. Now, all these are networks, which is very interesting. That these are open networks. These are networks where anyone can participate. This is interoperable networks. These are all interoperable networks, which means the network, of course, standalone network like ONDC, any app can talk to anyone. In OCEN network, any app can talk to anyone. And UHI network, any app can talk to anyone, right? Here, basically, in this session, I'm going to stitch together all three, right, for you, and sort of visualize a supernet. So these networks, of course, we talk about subnets in each of these networks, right? Subnetworks in each of these networks. But I think there's opportunity here to also look at supernet, like super network, which basically is a combination of all three networks. And there might be other networks which might come in future. So this session is about these three networks. I'm going to quickly cover about ONDC, right? ONDC, as you know, is basically something which is India started for e-commerce penetration in India, which is ONDC is open network for digital commerce. It is open again. It is a network and for commerce. I mean, that's basically sort of summarizes what ONDC is. And it's based on backend protocol, and we will see that backend is basically the base for two of the networks here, which is ONDC and UHI, right? If you don't know what beacon protocol, you should definitely read about it. It's amazing what beacon is doing to create protocols, not just in e-commerce or lending, even like jobs and other spaces, they're creating protocols there. It's interesting thing to study further. Open basically is open credit enablement network. Basically, again, is open and network. So two words are common with ONDC, and of course that is for digital commerce and this for credit enablement. So is again an initiative by Indian government to increase lending penetration in India. It's all about lending here, how to get loans, faster loans, cheaper loans, smaller loans, again, which is something that India needs. And the OCEN protocol is built by iSpert, and you can, read more about iSpert and their contribution to OCEN independently. UHI, of course, UHI is Unified Health Interface, again, based on beacon, as I said. It's an initiative by Indian government to increase health service accessibility in India. Today, basically, health services are available, but the discovery of those services is what UHI enables. And we will learn more about UHI as I spend more time on UHI in my further slides. Now coming to the buzz, right? The buzz in India about ONDC, Google, PhonePe, Dunzo, almost anyone you can think of as a brand, big brand, is participating in ONDC. Now, not just the big daddies are participating. The ONDC is more about small sellers. It's about the small kirana store, which is in the neighborhood. So a lot of these entities are right now getting onboarded on ONDC through multiple partners. Some are seller aggregators, some are directly coming in ONDC. So a lot of activity around here. OCEN basically, again, as I said, it is like predicted to be the next big disruption in lending, right? Now, again, look at what is coming out of India, and these things don't exist anywhere. When you look at GovTech, government tech in Singapore, in Dubai, if you look at US, if you look at Canada, you don't hear GovTech to to the extent that we have in India right now, right? So it's something, a lot of buzz in the media around how can will empower MSMEs, how it can be like the UPI, how what UPI did for digital payments. And UHI, UHI again, you continue to hear buzz in media. You will actually hear a lot more about UHI, and I bet you will, in coming few months, because this is coming up very fast. And already, we're seeing a lot of activity in UHI. And again, very interesting, a lot of potential, a lot of people talking about it, a lot of buzz in the media. Now, impact of ONDC is basically, when you look at the impact of ONDC, it spans 300 to 500 million customers, 30 to 50 crore customers are expected to use ONDC, close to 100 crore orders per month are expected to come on ONDC every month. More than 1.5 crore sellers are expected to participate, and 75% pin code coverage. Today we have 20-25% pin code coverage. With ONDC, it will get to 75%. Just in the morning, I was talking to someone who was talking about sampling, soil sampling, collection of soil samples from these rural areas, and a lot of farmers need soil sampling collection. And ONDC can enable that, right? Someone can, if he wants to send, uh, you know, wants a soil sample to be collected, they can actually look for, who are testing soil samples in the nearby areas, and they can actually use the ONDC logistics network to get their soil samples picked up, right? So a lot of potential across categories, a lot of potential across, one of the most important aspect about ONDC is that hyper local. Your neighborhood will change like nothing. Your neighborhood economy will change like nothing with ONDC. So if you have to take one point from here about ONDC, is that hyperlocal will be very, very different. And it's gonna boost like anything, your hyperlocal deliveries, whether a lot of things you basically want to buy and they're available locally, but you are not able to access it today because you're not aware of it. The discovery of local neighborhood is something ONDC is going to power a lot, and interesting things will happen there. Now, OCEN basically is about lending, as I said. Today, only 10% of MSMEs actually have access to formal lending. They don't get access to lending, right? They don't get access to loans, and their business actually suffers a lot. Lot of times, the MSME dies not because they're profitable, not because they're unprofitable, right? But because they lack access to working capital. They need loan to grow, to fund their, manufacturing, their working capital, the inventory, but they don't get access to it. And that is basically where, OCEN comes into picture, because OCEN is a network, and what it does is that it enables real-time micro lending. If you want like 1,000 rupees, 10,000 rupees loan, it's hard to get right now, because unless you go to a gray market and give like 30, 40, 100% interest rate, it's very hard. And OCEN basically would enable real-time micro lending, right? With ONDC, if you have to take one point, is hyperlocal. With OCEN, one point you have to take is micro lending. Your 10,000 rupees loan will come to you like in a jiffy, and you don't have to, worry about, submitting a lot of papers, because the OCEN network will take all your data from GST, from banks. If you want to share it, of course, it's based on consent. But if you wish to get loan very fast, and if you are willing to share data from your GST, from your banks, from your other sources, ITR and those kind of stuff, it will be very easy for you to get loans. With UHI, basically, we talk about health. Now, UHI basically, what it's doing is digitizing a lot of your health records. One of the things, which it's not part of UHI, but it's part of ABDM, is basically digitizing health records, your personal health records, PHRs. And so a lot of data is getting digitized as part of ABDM. And what UHI does is that it allows a patient, a consumer, a user to discover health services around their neighborhood, right? Around their city, right? Or even in India, right? Today, if you are looking for some doctor who specializes in certain, segment of disease or surgery, you have limited, resources right now. And some of these doctors exist, but they're not there on, currently on Practo or other platforms. We have 2 million, doctors, nurses, hospitals, clinics, that kind of facility, ambulance services. It's hard for you to discover all these right now today, right? If you're logged into one particular app, you don't are not aware of other data which is available on another application, right? So one of the things which UHI is doing is basically helping you discover these health services, these doctors, these clinics, these hospitals around you, these laboratories around you, and basically get your whatever services you required very quickly and seamlessly, where you can also share your medical health records with the doctor or the clinics remotely, right? We're talking about remote here, or you can also go to the doctor. Nothing stopping you from that. But the power is, it's a real-time remote health that you can get without you going to the doctor, right? Because you can share all your data, you can share your personal health records and those kind of stuff, right? Now we're talking about data a lot. We're talking about data in OCEN, we're talking about data in ONDC, we're talking about data in UHI, and these are sensitive data. So one of the things which people are doing, which government is doing, is that making sure none of the data is shared unless there is a consent from you, right? So unless you consent to share data with a doctor, with a bank, with a anyone, that data is not going from one place to another unless you approve it, right? So consent is one of the important factor in all these networks, and we'll look into it more detail. Now, ONDC architecture, we have seen, there's a buyer app and there's a seller app ecosystem. There's a registry where all the buyer apps and seller apps will register. And then there's a protocol which basically flows between the seller app and buyer app, right? If you want to know more about it, you can listen to my previous sessions on ONDC. So basically, this is another rendition of ONDC architecture where it's clear that on the seller app side you may have a lot of sellers, and on the buyer app side you have a lot of consumers. That's basically is how the architecture as a whole looks like. OCEN architecture is similar. Now again, because all these are open networks, right? So always there's on the one side there's always a provider app. And on the other side, there's a consumer app. In all the networks, you will see there's always be a provider app and there's always be a consumer app, right? Provider app in ONDC is called seller app. In OCEN world, it's called lender app, right? In the ONDC world, the consumer app is called buyer app. In the OCEN architecture, it's called LSP, which is a loan service provider app, right? So this is basically, when I take you to UHI also, you'll see the same architecture. So one of the good things about once you know one architecture, looking at another, you quickly understand, oh, there's a registry here where all the apps have to register, right? And even in ONDC, all the apps have to register, both the buyer app and seller app, right? Again, here LSP app and your lender apps have to register on the registry. And your data, which is coming from FIPs, which are financial information provider, right? Which are your banks, your GSTN, which basically ITR, or even like mutual funds. These are your FIPs, and the FIPs will share your data with lender apps through an entity called account aggregator. Now you might have heard of AAs, you might not have heard of AAs, which is account aggregators. Account aggregators get licensed from RBI, so you cannot be an account aggregator unless you get licensed by RBI. They have important function, which is to make sure data from FIPs, financial information providers, go to lender apps with only when the consent is given by the borrower, by the person who is borrowing, right? So there is a data flow here, which is actually also part of OCEN, is between the FIP and the lender app. And then there is a transactional flow between the borrower and the lender app, right? lenders basically. So lenders are basically your ICICI Bank, can be a lender, your Bajaj Finserv, NBFCs, these are lenders, and LSP apps. I'll probably show it to you. I have another slide. Again, architecture wise, holistically, when you look at lender apps, you have all the lenders, and LSP, which is loan subs, service provider apps. Basically, you have borrowers on one side. Now we'll talk more about UHI. Right? As I said, UHI actually is part of ABDM, which is your Ayushman Bharat Digital Mission. Right? Under ABDM, basically, there are two networks, you can say. One is a data network, one is a service network. Right. Data network basically is governed by your, HIECM, which is your basically Health Information Exchange and dash consent manager. So HICM is your Health Information Exchange and consent manager together. Right. As you can see with HICM, basically it's the name itself has this. It's an information exchange, right? So if your personal health record has to flow from one entity to another, it cannot flow unless there is a consent from you, which is you means patient, right? Unless there is a consent from the patient, the health records cannot move from one location to another, one participant to another. And that is the responsibility of HIE-CM. Right? Now UHI is basically working in conjunction with HICM to enable basically a lot of digitization in health sector. So primarily UHI, what is doing is enabling discovery of services, right? So it's a service network. It's basically where all the services are discovered. And as part of ABDM, what you have is a ABHA ID, which is your Ayushman Bharat Health, ID, basically. It's basically is an ID which you can generate on CoWIN right now. If you go to CoWIN app, you can basically generate ABHA ID very quickly with a single click. ABHA ID is like your UPI ID. So in UHI, the ABHA ID is your like UPI ID, where, if you go to your service provider, let's say you go to a doctor, clinic, or a hospital, and there might be a QR code there, which basically will scan your ABHA ID. And then basically you can exchange whatever data that doctor needs to see from your personal health records, right? So PHI is your health record. Your HFR is your health facility register, which basically means registry of hospitals, clinics, laboratories, ambulances, right? And HPR is your health professional registry, which means nurses and doctors, right? These are HPR and HFR are approved by government, so you cannot participate or become part of those registries unless government approves you. So you might have to give some credentials, some certificates that you actually a doctor, that you actually a hospital, and those kind of stuff. What it gives is that gives credence to basically the network that the participants are verified, right? Your doctor is verified, your nurse is verified, your hospitals are verified, clinics are verified, laboratories are verified. This is basically is important in the UHI ecosystem. Now I'm gonna stop here and quickly see if you have any questions, because I've been talking about this stuff for last 30 minutes. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer that right now. So one question is, can we get the presentation later? Yes, we will email you the presentation. Don't worry about. We'll also email you the recording of this. So don't worry about that part. How will my website, which is selling Ayurvedic beauty products in skincare, in skincare benefit and sale grow organically. Now, basically, you are, if you are, I'm assuming if I don't know if Ayurvedic is a certification, but you can also, in your view, I think you can participate in both the networks, in ONDC network and UHI network. Now, UHI, I'm not sure because there might be restrictions and, whether, I don't know what kind of certifications you require, but definitely on ONDC you can participate, and grow your business, because in ONDC one of the important thing which happens is that you are getting orders without you needing to do marketing, because buyer apps do the marketing for you, right? You are not doing the marketing. So one of the things I think which which is interesting for you might be coming on ONDC is that your marketing is almost like zero, so you get orders based on your location, your category, and your price. Where can we watch your previous videos of ONDC? I think you can watch on all the ONDC presentations are there on YouTube. So if you search for Plotch, ONDC, you should be able to find it there. We'll try to send you a link also in the email. With this, I'll continue my presentation. So basically, the as I said, I had to give you some background about ABDM, because the HICM architecture uses the same bedrock of ABDM, which is HPR, FHR, HFR registry, or ABHA ID, and there's a consent manager exchange, right? So on the one side, in HICM architecture is your health information user. Your HIU basically is a health information user, which is basically the person who is requesting for data. And on the other side is your health information provider, which basically is your person who is providing the health information. So in HIP can be let's say, for example, can be a hospital or laboratory, or even can be a doctor. And HIU can also be a doctor, because that doctor needs the information, or it can also be your yourself, patient, right? So those are the things which is then HICM. Your UHI architecture is basically has similar participant, which is your registries are still there, your health information exchange still there, ABHA ID is still there, but basically the apps might be different, right? Your apps on one side is basically HSP app, which is what they call is a health service provider basically app, which again is a the hospital, laboratory, ambulances, service providers. It can be pharmacies, it can be clinics, it can be doctors, right? On the other side is your EUA apps. Now these are end user apps. EUA means end user apps, and these can be any of the apps that that you are currently on, including Google Pays. It can be Paytm. It can be anyone. Now, in ONDC, basically, who are on the buyer side? Buyer side, you have these Google Pays and Airtel and Paytm. On the seller side, it will be primarily small sellers, small kirana stores, small, sari seller, small kurti seller, jewelry seller, electronics, your electronic shop in the neighborhood, grocery mart and those kind of stuff. So that's basically is where, the ONDC architect, participants look like. On OCEN, basically on one side you will have Bajaj Finserv, HDFC, Kotak, ICICI Bank. On the LSP app side, you will have players like again Paytm, Google Pay, Swiggy, Car Dekho, Khata Book kind of players. Basically, people who through where you think you actually need basically you get a lot of traffic. These are the apps where you get a lot of traffic, right? So always on the provider side, you will have more businesses, right? On the consumer side, you'll have more like consumer apps, right? Consumer where people actually come for doing anything, from payment or for doing buying, you know, food, or or for people who are like, you know, looking for used cars, for example, car dekho in this case, right? In the UHI architecture, basically your providers are primarily your hospitals like Apollo, diagnostics lab like SRL, some small clinics, your family doctors, and ambulance services, right? And on the other side, you'll have players like Practo, CureFit, Google Pay again, Paytm, MediBuddy, and you might have noticed that Google Pay, Paytm have pretty much have been there in all the three architecture, and that's the beauty, right? The beauty is that of all these networks, is that any app can participate. Anyone who has consumers on one side can participate in all these networks. And that, I think, I'll illustrate it more when we talk about a digital super app, that the topic of this discussion. ONDC, basically the sellers have to manage the catalog, and the buyers have to manage the marketing. That's pretty much what responsibilities, other than of course other responsibilities which seller app and buyers app have. Lenders, basically lender apps have to underwrite, create loan offers, manage the consent, while LSP app again have to get marketing, get consumers, have to present the offers, loan offers which they're getting from all the lender apps, and those kind of stuff. And similarly, for in UHI architecture, your basically your health service provider app will basically needs to onboard doctors, create services, create lab support and teleconsultation and those kind of stuff. While on EUA app, basically again they have to do marketing, get customers, make sure you can scan the QR code, ABA QR code, and teleconsultation and those kind of stuff. This is a bit complicated. I've covered that in my OCEN plus ONDC architecture, and how OCEN plus ONDC can work together. If you want to know more detail about this, you can watch my previous session where I talked about ONDC plus OCEN and how it can be useful. Now coming to the digital super app, right? Something that is topic of this discussion is, there's what we're looking at is a potential opportunity to create India's digital super app, right? And this super app is going to play in like large ecosystem, which means that is playing in e-commerce, which is huge, multi-billion dollar, hundreds of billion-dollar industry, right? It's playing in the lending ecosystem, again some multi-hundred-billion-dollar opportunity, right? And again, health is huge, right? If you are able to visualize such a super app where someone can search for any kind of service, whether it's a loan, whether it's doctor, whether it's like there's a big search bar like Google where anyone can search anything, and you can buy grocery, you can find doctor, loan, jobs, whatever you want to, whatever is your need. And it's powered by India Stack. It's powered by the huge network which India Stack offers, right? Just imagine, if that happens, it's amazing that, you don't have to basically go on multiple apps and do stuff. You pretty much can do everything and anything on a very large network. We're not talking of a super app of Tata or Reliance. We're not talking about that. We're talking about super app of India, where the Tata, Reliance, everyone is there, right? So that is basically is an interesting opportunity. And basically the way it can work is that is just if someone searches for milk, it actually there's a search router which basically will go to ONDC network and get you milk, right? If you search for loan, it will go on OCEN network. It will, get you loan offers, right? Or if you're looking for blood test, it will go on UHI network and get you, all the laboratories in your neighborhood who can do blood test with the prices and those kind of stuff, right? So a single app, a single place where you go and basically access all three networks is a super interesting opportunity in my view. And if you are an entrepreneur who are looking at it, and if you can visualize it and dream it and make it happen, it's a huge opportunity which I think which you should encash, because on one hand you have 500 million consumers who are coming and looking for these kind of products and services, right? And on the other hand, you have 15 million sellers, 16 million MSMEs, and 2 million health service providers, right? These are something that even if you start today and if you want to build it yourself, you cannot get access to these 15 million sellers, 16 million MSMEs, and 2 million health service providers. Impossible for you to build such a network, right? But without doing anything, without spending a money on this, on building this, if you participate in these three networks, OCEN, ONDC, and UHI, you actually can get access to all these three powerful pillars of India, of supply pillars of this India, right? And it's a $1 trillion opportunity. Now again, these APIs I will not talk, is bit technical nature, but if you want to know more about it, I can talk, right? Now, but important thing here is that we have these three, ONDC, OCEN, and UPI, not UHI, UPI. These are very large networks, but they are for the smallest. They are for the smallest kirana store. A large thing is getting built for someone who is the smallest part of the network, right? Which is your smallest kirana store. And that is very interesting because a small kirana store can get access to 1,000 rupees loan today. If on OCEN network, they can participate in ONDC net e-commerce without they being worried about their products not coming in on Amazon or Flipkart, right? And they can take payments on UPI, without they needing a digital, credit card machine and those kind of stuff, right? So these are population scale networks getting built for the smallest. Also, these large networks are for the largest, right? And when I say largest, is for the 1.4 billion population of India, right? ONDC, OCEN, UPI, UHI, all these networks are there for that 1.4 billion population that we have on the consumer side, right? And so a large population accessing the services made for the smallest of the sellers. And that is the interesting part, because small sellers can participate and consumers win because they get access to a large network of services, right? Again, a population scale. We call these population scale networks because they embrace all the population. They embrace the whole population. They're not impacting your small, cities or small segment of people. They actually impact the whole population. And this is where India is heading. And I think if you have not been exposed to these 3 or 4 networks yet, my request will be to look at these networks in deeper and participate as soon as possible in whatever capacity you have, so that you can grow your business, so that you are not devoid of any loans. You can get access to loans, you can get access to working capital, right? And grow your business. And that basically is the idea here. I think I'm done here. We have still have some time. I wanted to basically take you through the three big networks India is building, which is ONDC, OCEN, and UHI. And hopefully you can use these networks to build your business, grow your business where you are today, take it to the next level. Any questions you have, I'm happy to answer right now. How does PLOS support onboarding with ONDC? With Plotch, what you can do is we have single click connector for you to connect to ONDC, whether you want to build a seller app or whether you want to build a buyer app, right? We are much ahead of in the curve where we can help you get onboarded on ONDC very quickly without you needing a lot of technical knowledge. And good part is you get a website, you get a mobile app, everything. You don't need to go anywhere. So with Plotch, that's what basically is what you get very quickly. Go to market on ONDC. Does ONDC has government framework for any company to register as a payment gateway? No, not right now. From what I know, and I can be wrong, but not today. You can be a participant as a seller. You can be participant as a buyer app, which means that if you have a lot of consumers, you can participate. You can also participate as a logistics player. If you are someone who has logistics, if you are a courier company, or if you have a small logistics company, if you have even like manage like 10 delivery agents in your neighborhood, one of the interesting things which ONDCs, in my view, will create is your mohalla level logistics networks. In my view, that is something very interesting opportunity and a marketplace of these mohalla logistics networks, right? So that anyone can discover these logistics participant. But as a payment gateway, there isn't any place I saw where they are saying, okay, you register as a payment gateway, or there's a payment network and those kind of stuff. So yeah, so that's what it is. What are job aspects in ONDC? I'm not sure about that question, but if what I can tell you is that ONDC, the way it is growing, the lot of requirement. If you are if you're someone who is in technology, if you're someone who is onboarding sellers, if you're someone who has a good understanding of e-commerce, I think you will definitely get a very interesting job prospects in future. Can you talk more about technical side of APIs? Definitely I can, but this is in some ways going to be very technical. So what I can tell you is that ONDC has close to 13 APIs, which basically encompass all the transactions that are possible on ONDC. And OCEN, basically there are, from what I know, 22 APIs, which basically encompass all the whatever OCEN network has to need from API perspective. These are asynchronous APIs, which basically means that you don't get response immediately, but you get response after a certain point of time. And these have authentication headers and encryption keys and those kind of stuff, which basically you will have to manage. Yeah, and you can program in any language you want to, Java, PHP, Python, whatever you want to, whatever is your expertise in. Yeah, so that's basically is a very short about technical side of APIs. If you want to know more about, there is a specific session that I did on APIs, ONDC APIs, which you can look on YouTube. So that has more detail about ONDC APIs. Could you revisit the ONDC and OCEN working capital side, and do seller apps directly function with lenders here? So basically, if you look at the slide, right, which I'll just come back again, and I find it very interesting, with the possibility of ONDC and OCEN, right? Now, if you look at the slide very carefully, right, someone buys on ONDC, let's say buyer, a consumer buys on ONDC, and they might need a credit. We talk about BNPL, right? Buy now, pay later. So they might need a credit, someone, so that someone funds my buy, right? Now the seller has got the order on the seller side. Now seller has to fulfill, but doesn't have the product. So they might need a working capital requirement, right? So both of these can go to OCEN network. The buyer can go to the OCEN network, and the seller can go to the OCEN network and look for a instant loan, immediate loan. And these has to be immediate and hassle free, right? It cannot be a loan where, okay, I'll submit my documents, and 2 days later, someone, you know, approves it, and 7 days later someone disperses. It cannot happen that way, right? The lending has to happen immediately, within 5 minutes, within few minutes. That's what we're looking for, because the buyer needs to pay, right? And the seller has to fulfill within quickly, because in e-commerce you cannot dispatch 7 days or 10 days later, right? So both these parties can go to the lenders. Now, how do they go to the lender? The way they have to go to the lender is they have to go to the LSP app, right? And the lender, loan service provider app, and then basically they have to, whatever, they have to submit the document, they have to give the documents to the lenders, and they will get the offers, and they will accept the offer. But disbursement, will come to the bank account, which shouldn't happen in this case, because the end use case is very clear. The buyer wants to buy, and the seller wants to fund the working capital, right? So ideally, if the seller app and the buyer app both are LSP apps, right, loan service provider app, if they can participate in OCEN directly, rather than they going through another LSP app, then it becomes interesting, because then they can participate seamlessly and get the credit, and get funded, right? And the buyer directly pays to the payment gateway. So those kind of stuff, right? So possibilities are very interesting when you think of that. Your seller app and buyer app can also be LSP app, because nothing prevents you to become LSP in an OCEN network. And that is basically is what is this slides means, becomes interesting. Is Plotch is only a mediator with ONDC or anything else? We're not a mediator in a mediator sense. Let me tell you about ONDC. We are basically a technology service provider role. That's what we are playing with ONDC, which means that we are ourselves are not buyer app. We ourselves are not seller app, but we help you as a buyer app or seller app to get connected to ONDC. So we'll help you create a buyer app, and we'll help you create a seller app. You don't have to worry about technology, and you don't have to worry about talking to ONDC and those kind of stuff. We will do that for you, right? So that's basically is what we provide as a technology service provider. Can a single entity be both a buyer and seller side app? Yes. And I answered that in my previous sessions also. Yes, you can be both a buyer and seller app. Of course, the use cases are very limited. Usually people would either be a seller app or a buyer app, usually. But if you want to be, nothing stops you to become both a buyer and a seller app. Entities from which cities entities from which cities can now enroll in ONDC? You can enroll from any city. There is no restriction on city, right? What I've heard from ONDC folks is that if there is someone from a particular city wants to register, they will gladly take them and onboard them because they are looking to expand to 100 cities as soon as possible, right? So if you are a particular city or a particular town, well, there's no restriction right now. Is FIP an API, and how does it work, or what's the requirement? Yeah, see, basically everything, all the data flows is through APIs, right? So if you look at the how the data flows from FIP to a particular lender, there is an API for that. Now we cannot get into detail about that API, but yes, the data flow is always through APIs, whether it's in ABDM, HIECM-CM framework where the health information is getting exchanged, or whether it's when your financial information is getting exchanged. In both their APIs and both their consent, your consent is necessary in both the networks. What would be the process for a logistic provider to join the ONDC platform? Is the same. The process doesn't change. Basically, if you want to become part of ONDC platform right now, just drop us an email at ondc@plos.ai and we'll happy to support you. You can also drop an email to team@ondc.org and they can also help you directly. So whatever is comfortable to you, you can do that. If you are a seller app, then we have to build API and callback URL will be given to ONDC. If we are a seller app, then we have to build API. If you're a seller app or a buyer app, you basically have to work on the technology part. It doesn't matter whether you're a buyer app or seller app, you have to implement the APIs. So in one case, you have to make sure you can take the search API, for example, and do the callback on search. So your API requirements don't change, only your role changes. So you definitely will need to implement the APIs. What is the difference between direct onboard to ONDC or onboard via Plotch? So if you directly onboard on ONDC, you will need a technology team, a tech team. Without a technology team, you cannot do anything. You need to know technology yourself, right? With Plotch onboarding, you don't need to know technology. Nothing, zero. We will do the work for you, right? So that's the benefit of, if you're going directly to ONDC, well and good. But you will need a technology team. If you are onboarding via Plotch, you basically don't need a technology team. And we can do things faster for you. Another thing is that. Is there any subscription fees for the consumer like Amazon Prime for free delivery? The subscription fees for the consumer. So basically, this ONDC doesn't talk about subscriptions and those kinds of stuff, offers. Those are for the buyer app and the seller app too. If you have any offers through ONDC APIs, you can submit those offers. Let's say you want to do buy one get one, if you want to give 10% off, 20% off. So those are possible. But subscription type of stuff I have not seen being talked about in ONDC. So I'm assuming it's not going to be difficult. It's not going to be easy there. Let's say smallest Kirana store receives an order from the Plotch, how the shipping, takes care and delivery to the consumer. So basically, if a Kirana store is on Plotch and if they receive an order from ONDC, they can choose to do home delivery via themselves. They can choose to basically use players like Dunzo to get the products delivered. We have integration with Dunzo, for example. or they can choose to basically the pickup option is unfortunately not there right now in in ONDC. So pickup option unfortunately is not there. But yeah, those things are there, and yeah, so Splotch basically helps you. Basically, you can either say I'm only do home delivery, so that home delivery option goes to the buyer app side, and the buyer may choose you because you do home delivery, or may choose someone else who who uses Dunzo or those kind of stuff. Can FIP be an independent company or just an API? See, FIP is not an API. FIP is financial information provider, which means these are your banks. These are your, GSTN network, right? This is your IT network, income tax network, mutual fund. These are the people who have your information, your financial information. And if they are enabled, OCEN enabled, then basically these FIPs can basically are enabled to share data. They can share data from one party to another party, right? So currently a lot of these banks are already, part of as FIPs, the participating. So yeah, these. It's basically, if you want to be an FIP, you basically will have to talk to someone in OCEN and understand the process of becoming an FIP. Is there any live environment where we can use ONDC functionality? Yeah, basically we have built next week we are going to show a live demo of ONDC, what we have built. And we plan to show both the buyer app and the seller app and the analytics. So I think if you are part of our mailing list, you will receive a email where you can basically participate and see how actually a buyer app and seller app will work in ONDC, and what kind of analytics are we thinking of, what kind of analytics are coming out of ONDC, and what you can see, and what is available, and those kind of stuff. So I think definitely you should look at that. You should look out for an email from us to invite you to participate in a live ONDC demo that we plan to do next week. I think with that we are basically out of time right now. I'm just saying that we have struck 6 o'clock. So I hope this session was useful. The key takeaways I want you to take is that ONDC is for e-commerce, OCEN is for lending, and UHI is for health. And all these three golden trio is going to impact you a lot, whether you like it or not, whether you want it or not, they are going to impact you. And how you use these networks for your business is very important. And you should definitely start thinking about it. You should definitely start investing time in this so that your business can prosper, your business can grow. With that, I'll end here. Thank you for your time. I hope you found it useful. We'll meet again next time. Thank you. Bye bye.